Okay. Get it up. Give me a second. Sorry. Okay. So what I wanted to look at was the beginning of the of emor starts and says it's a fascinating parsha, because the parsha really is all about the Kohanim. Well, to start off with, both the Kohanim and the kedusha of the Kohanim, but it says something fascinating in the beginning of the parsha. It says emor el Kohanim b'nei Aaron v'amarta alehem. Speak to the Kohanim, the children of Aaron, v'amarta alehem, and say to them. So if you're going to speak to them, then obviously you're going to say to them. So the Nesivos Shalom wants to understand, why does it have to say emor el Kohanim v'amarta alehem? The double language seems to be unnecessary. So the Nesivos Shalom, which is the Slonim Rebbe, quotes from Rashi. Rashi says that when it says emor el Kohanim v'amarta, it says speaking the hakatanim al hagadolim al hakatanim, the which we understand to be the adults and the children, but he explains that it's much more profound like that. He explains that whenever the Torah re-emphasizes a word, so for example, we say in the Shema, Vaya im shamoa tishma'u. Im shamoa tishma'u. Why does it have to say im shamoa tishma'u? Just say im shamoa el mitzvotai. So why is there the double verb? The reason for the double verb is to emphasize something. And what is the emphasis? So explains the Nesivos Shalom that the world in which we live in, we have to remember, is made up of two things. It's made up of this world, and it's made up of the other world, a higher world. It's made up of kadush, of material, the Gashmi world, and the Ruchni world. And it's made up of Tumah, and it's made up of Tara. So it's always made up of these opposite things. And whenever it uses the double language, say emor ve'amarta ve'ayim shamoa tishma'u, we have that also in tzedakah, naton titain. Whenever it's speaking about these things, what the Torah is emphasizing is that the motivation with which one needs to approach these things has to be from the point of view of dealing with two things, both the ruchni, both the spiritual and the physical, both the otherworldly and this worldly. And when it comes to the Kohanim, it's most profound, because the Kohanim are our representatives of Tahara in this world. And so what they need to understand, says the Nesivos Shalom, is that they need to understand the importance of their role as maintaining a sense of Tahara, of maintaining a sense of purity and of Kedusha, because without them, we wouldn't have a base for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to vest in this world. Emor ve'amarta says to them, there's a physical thing that you have to do, and part of that physical thing, which the parasha speaks about, is who they can marry and who they can't marry, who they can come to contact with and who they can't. So this speaks about the contact of the dead, coming into contact with tumat mate, with the impurity of the death. They can't come into contact with that because they, as representatives of us in this world, need to be as tahor as they can be. That's why Tumah and Tahara is such a big thing for the Kohanim. But emor ve'amarta says to them that there are two things that you have to be in, you have to be in contact with. The one is the understanding that the Ruchni world in which we live in is the world very much of the heart space, because it's emotional, it's connection, it's around the things that we are. Whereas what we need to, that's the Gashmi world, is the emotional, the connection, the tie that comes from the heart. But what we need to work on, and specifically the Kohanim, need to work on the moach, also need to work on intellectual consciousness, because when they can work on the intellectual consciousness, then the level of their commitment becomes much more. And that's why the learning of Torah is so profound and so important, because the learning of Torah takes us out of just the inspired space of the things that we'd like to do and puts us into a space where we are able on a sustainable level to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Emor ve'amarta, say ve'amarta, and say again to them. Say to them that you have to connect with your heart. We understand that, and that's part of our commitment as call us from Jews, as committed Jews. But the biggest part is the connection both of the physical as well as the moach and of the intellectual. And when we understand that, then we can understand how the Kohanim become to be our representatives in this world, because the Kohanim are not, their role is not just simply to do the korbanot, which is often what we think. We think about the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is the guy who goes and he does all the amazing things on Yom Kippur. But really, what the role of the Kohanim is to be the teachers of the Jewish people. And if you're the teacher of the Jewish people, explains the Nesiv Shalom, you have to come from a position of strength both in the Ruchni and in the Gashmi. And that goes back to last week's parasha of Kadoshim Tiyu, which is the same thing. Where there in Kadoshim Tiyu, it says, that's also a double language of Kedusha. Why? Because there's Kedusha of practice, of the action, but there's also the Kedusha of the Moach, of understanding that there's got to be a sustainable space of Kedusha, of making sure that we continue to try and be in a space of striving for spiritual greatness. And that's only the way you can do that is not because we're inspired, because inspiration doesn't last, but because we understand things. And that really, I suppose, always comes to the point of davening. It comes to the point of every mitzvah that we do. The more we learn about what it means, the more we begin to understand it. I shared with you before this concept of melech haolam, the idea that we have to find the malchut of Hashem and the joy and the enjoyment in the malchut of Hashem. But it's not only in that; it's in everything that we do. And so, as we understand emor v'amarta, we have to speak. We also have to see the things that we speak. The language of our davening needs to be much more profound. And perhaps that can lead us just to the last idea, just on the simple level of saying a bracha. When we say Baruch, which is there to really connect us with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in whatever environment that is that we're making that bracha, the word Baruch comes from two words. One is Berecha, which means we recognize Hashem as the Berecha, as the root of all. The Berecha is like a flowing stream, flowing pool, that we see Hashem as the root of all this blessing. But there's also a Berkaim on our knees. And so when we say Baruch, what we're really doing is not saying blessed art you Hashem, but what we really are saying is that we are prepared to recognize that you are Kodesh Baruch Hu on our knees. Explains the Netziv. What does that mean? You are on our knees. You are the one that ensures that we can bend when we need to bend, and we can straighten when we need to straighten. Emor v'amarta, as we say to the Kohanim, we need to recognize it's not just a momentary issue. It's a daily thing. It's an everyday thing, a sustainable thing that we are able to connect in the most profound way, understanding the things that we say, understanding the things that we do, to connect both our souls and our souls, meaning our physical world in which we live in, as well as our moach, as well as our heads, which is that spirit, the deepest spiritual connection that we can possibly have. Have a wonderful day, and please God, we will see you. I don't think we'll do anything tomorrow because davening conflicts, but I will put on a short idea as well on the group. Have a beautiful day, everybody.